Welcome to Widowed Too Soon, where real-life widows and widowers come together to share their stories of survival, faith, and the journey of finding hope in the darkest of times. Whether you're newly widowed or have been on this journey for some time, each week we're here to provide you with inspiration, practical advice, and the reassurance that you are not alone. You were made to not only survive, but thrive. And now here's your host, a woman who has walked this path herself, who finds solace in writing, joy in speaking, and freedom in dancing like nobody's watching. Michelle Bader Ebersole.
Hey, this message is actually for the women only, sorry men, but we are having a women's widow retreat October 1st through 4th in Guffey, Colorado. If you have been wanting to connect with other people who get it, who get the widow journey and make some new friendships as well as feel support, be prayed over, have worship music, ride ATVs, ride horses, watch sunsets in nature, and just have a good time being with other people who have been down this widow journey, we would love for you to join us. We have a few spots left. It is not too late. So if you are interested, please click on the notes that says registration for retreat in the show notes. Send me a message if you have any questions. And you fly into either Denver, Colorado or Colorado Springs. And then you get over to Guffey and it's going to be a great, amazing time. So we hope to see you there. Now enjoy the episode. Welcome to Widowed Too Soon. This is Michelle Bader Ebersole. I am super excited. This is the third episode of season 4. And as you guys know, we just jump right into these now and get to know new people every week. I'm sure you enjoyed getting to hear George's interview this past week. I am sitting down today with Janice Bentley. How are you today, Janice?
I'm good. I'm excited.
Very good. Yes, I didn't have to ask you how to pronounce your last name or anything. You know, my dog's name is Bentley. So.
Oh, and I take care of a lady at work, and she's naming her baby Bentley.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that.
It is cool.
So what, real quick, because you're saying work, I'm curious, what do you do for work?
I work at an OBGYN office.
Okay,
I'm a medical assistant.
Awesome. Oh, that's so great. Well, we're so glad you're here today. And
Thank
you're
you.
coming to us from, where do you live again?
North of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. Another person out in the East Coast, basically, way out
East-ish.
there. East-ish. Yeah, I guess it's not all the way East Coast, but that's awesome. And we discovered, this is just a little fact before we get into your story, that you know someone who knows Joel and his family. Like that is crazy, like a Brazil connection. Like,
yes, from when they were children.
Yeah, like what are the chances of that? That's so crazy. So, anyways, that's God. That's God for you. All these connections. So I want to. I briefly looked over, your notes you had filled out, but I haven't heard your story from you. So I'm really excited to hear your story. So we usually just start with, could you share a little bit about like how you met your late husband and your story, and just kind of whatever you want to share. We are ready to hear it.
Sure. I was probably 17 and he was maybe 19, 18 or 19. I can't remember. We were at church. We went to the same church.
Okay.
And he was playing the trumpet in the orchestra. And I remember looking at him and going, he's kind of cute. I'd kind of like to go out with him.
I love it.
And that night he asked me out. He said, you going to Pizza Hut? Dude, I don't have any money.
Love it.
He said, I'll pay.
Aww.
So we went out to Pizza Hut that night and he kissed me goodnight.
Oh, sweet.
And I literally walked in. I walked into my apartment. I was living with my mom. Walked into my apartment, leaned up against the door, and just slid down and said, that's the one.
That's like a movie. That sounds like a movie.
It is. No, it took 2.5 years to actually get married.
Right. But you knew it from the beginning.
I knew it. I doubted it a couple of times, but I knew it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that. So what was your, so then what's your dating life like? And then when did you get engaged, married?
There's the funny part. We got engaged over the phone.
What? I've never heard that. Tell me how that happens.
We only dated like in person for 3 weeks before he got transferred to Hawaii from Mississippi, because we were living in Mississippi. So he got transferred to Hawaii and he had gone home to Ohio or Michigan, one of them, for Christmas, and then left for Hawaii. So we were
Okay.
talking on the phone. He goes, I guess I'm trying to say I love you, and will
Oh.
you marry me? And I said, yes. And then some decisions I made were not super good. So a year and a half or so, I broke up with him. A year and a half or so, we didn't have any contact. And then I
Okay.
found his address and I wrote him a letter. Then he called me and we spent an hour and a half on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
That was back when it was a per minute cost. So that phone
Right.
call was about $45.
Right. I remember
And
that.
we got back together over the phone. And
Oh.
he was still in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not come home for probably another 7 months, 6 to 7 months, and flew to Florida where his parents were at that point,
Mm.
and flew me to Florida because we had decided we were going to get married. I spent 3 weeks in Florida. Well, 3 weeks total with him
Mm-hmm.
in January. He left February 1st, and then we didn't see each other again until the week before the wedding. So from the
Wow.
time he asked me out the first time to the time we actually got married, 2.5 years, but we
Mm.
only physically in each other's presence was about 2 months.
Wow.
And then we were married a little over 38 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
I think we're one of the super odd success stories.
Right. Right. So then what was your life like when you got married? Like, just kind of tell us what
Well,
that's
we
like.
lived in Texas. When he left Hawaii, he got transferred to Dyess Air Force Base, which is in
Okay.
Abilene,
Air
Texas.
Force.
Well,
Okay.
that just happens to be the base I was born at when
What?
my
That's
dad was
crazy.
in the military. So we were there for from June to April, so 10 months or so. Then we moved. He got out because he said he
Mm-hmm.
didn't like being told what to do, so he got out of the military and got married.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure about that logic, but it works.
Right.
So we moved to Florida to be with his parents. And then
Okay.
none of us liked Florida.
Oh, okay.
His mom is from Florida, but none
Mm-hmm.
of us liked it. So we basically took a map and threw a dart and landed in the Charlotte area. Landed
Okay.
north of Charlotte in Concord. And we lived here. We still live here. I still live
Wow.
here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not originally from here, but this is my home.
Mm-hmm.
This is my home. I love
Yes.
this place. We've got a great church here. I live like less than a mile from my church.
Mm.
Super, super. I don't know what I would have done when he died without the people at my church.
Right. Right.
My family was great, but there were so many more people at my church that just swooped in, and I didn't have a need for a long time.
That's
It
so
was really
great.
good.
So, did you guys have kids together?
We did. We have 2 children. We have
Okay.
Lindsay, who is 37. She's married and has 3 children. She's married to Jared, and they have 3 children. Joel is 9. Raynon just turned 7, and Selah, their youngest little girl, she turned 3 in July.
Mm.
And then we have a son named Andy, and he's not married.
Okay.
But they all live close.
Oh,
They
that's
both live
so
close, so
nice
it's good.
that they live close.
It's
And
very
then
good.
when they were growing up, did you stay home with them? Did you work outside the home? What was your life
I
like?
did some. We
Mm-hmm.
homeschooled, and then
Okay.
I did work some, and then Lindsay went to kindergarten, first, second, and third at the local elementary school. And then we pulled him out and homeschooled him third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and then half a seventh, I think. I can't remember exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then she went to a private school. They both went to a private school for the last half of that school year. And then we pulled him back and homeschooled him again. Lindsay
Mm.
went for her senior year to the high school closest to us because she wanted to do the senior thing.
Yeah.
And then Andy, he graduated from homeschool. He was like, I'm
Okay.
good. I don't want to go back to school. I'm
Right.
good like this. So,
So we're just starting the homeschool journey. We went to a meeting
yeah.
last night for my youngest, who's going to be a junior. He just didn't
Oh,
want to
good.
go to his school. They'd been at this Christian school for 6 years, but he was like, I'm done. I want to try homeschooling. So
Hmm.
we're about to start that adventure. So we'll see
Yeah.
how that goes.
Yeah. In North Carolina, they have dual enrollment. So if they're, I don't know if it's just a senior, but they can enroll in high school or early college and
Mm-hmm.
go to college, get college credit for courses they're
Yeah.
taking in high school.
Yes, I think we have some of that too.
So we're
Okay,
pretty excited about
so
that.
yeah, that's really awesome. So you're living near Nashville. Tell us a little bit, about what happened with your husband.
So he had been feeling odd since January of 23. He can tell you, well, he could have told you the date, January 27th. He just started having odd pains, chest pain, back pain, arm pain. And so it scared him. So he went to the doctor. They did a full cardiac workup, did a cardiac CT. It took him a while, but they did the cardiac CT and found that he had a blockage. And they did the heart cath, the first heart cath on July 25th. Well, that one was fine. Well, I say it was fine. He did have a 60% blockage. And the doctor said he didn't want to do a stent then because he was afraid, because of where the blockage was, he was afraid of cutting off or reducing blood flow to another artery, another major artery. So they didn't do it. We left the hospital that day with the plan of coming back. Dave was going to go back to the doctor's office on August 9th, so the day before his birthday, and do a follow-up visit. Well, the next day, so it would have been July 26th, in the evening, the doctor called him and said, we're going to go ahead and schedule out that stent, but we want you to take the statin drugs. Well, he didn't want to do that because he had already taken them and they made him feel horrible. And I honestly can't remember whether he actually did that time or not. But we went in on August 1st we got there around 8, left here around 7 or so. He was making jokes all the way to the hospital, just funny dad jokes. And we get there and we go in and I saying goodbye. The pastor had come. I had left for him to go pray with Dave, had come out, and I'd gone back in and got my kiss goodbye. And I stopped and I said, I need a hug. I don't just want a kiss. I need a hug. So I got a hug. And I'm so glad I did, because that was the last time I saw my husband awake. I never saw him awake again. So when I left and went out to sit in the lobby, a little bit later, before they took him up, that one of the nurse practitioners or a PA or something came out and asked if I was Mrs. Bentley. And I'm like, why? She had his wedding ring, because he didn't take it off. He'd forgotten to take it off, and they were going to use that arm for the heart cath. So she gave me his wedding ring, put it on my finger. They took him up and did whatever they were going to do. And about 11:45, I thought, it's getting awful long.
Right.
It should have been, I should have heard something by now. And I had a sick stomach, a sick feeling in my stomach, literally all morning long, from before we left for the hospital until I found out what was going on. So I walk in and I'm like, I'm just coming to check on my husband, trying to be all upbeat because I'm thinking it's fear. She said, well, he's having some complications, so they're working with him. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Right.
And I'm probably yelling by then. What does that mean? Well, she couldn't tell me. I'm like, oh, that's the wrong answer. I need an update. So somebody finally came down and gave me an update. And while I was standing there waiting on the update, I heard them over the loudspeaker call the code on my husband. And she tried to tell me that she didn't know that it was my husband. I'm like, how many cath labs do you have?
Right.
Well, they only had one. There were 2 patients up there, but only one was in the cath lab, and it was my husband. So that was when my experience with the chaplain at that hospital started. Stellar job. That man did a stellar job. There's not a time that I looked up in the more than 3.5 hours that we were there after he coded, because they got him back. The more than 3.5 hours, I don't ever remember looking up and him not being there, the chaplain not being there. I'm sure he was back and forth, but anytime I looked up, I saw him. And he stayed with us, made sure we were okay, made sure we got out the door okay. And we left that hospital probably 3:30 or so, 3:30, 4 o'clock, and transferred to the main hospital with that system, because there's 2 different hospital systems here in Charlotte, Atrium and Novant, and he was with Novant. And so they transferred him to the main hospital, Presbyterian, and the plan was to go in and do a quick assessment in the ICU and then take him to surgery to repair the damage that had been done. And because he had a heart attack on the table. We do know that now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he never made it out of surgery. And while we were standing there waiting for him to come out of the cath lab and go into the the elevator to be transferred, the doctor was telling me what had happened. He said, "Miss Bentley, I don't know what happened. I don't know why this happened. I've never seen this happen in anybody of your husband's age and health." And he said, "The only time I've ever seen this happen was when in somebody in his 80s." So we figured out that when they put the stent in, another artery got blocked. They stented that one, and then that's when he had the heart attack. But blood was flowing when both the stents had been put in, but he had a heart attack after that. Started complaining of chest pain and back pain, and then decompensated, and they started giving him resuscitative meds and had intubated him. And then that's when I found out that when I walked in to ask about him, I found out that that's what happened.
Wow.
And then they got him to the hospital, and they got him to the other hospital and spent probably 2.5 hours on him in surgery with 3 cardiac surgeons, and they just couldn't save him. Too much damage. There's a lot of medical details that I'm leaving out with the heart pump and and it's just so much to leave out, but he just didn't make it out of surgery.
Wow. So what
Devastating.
was that? Yeah. What was that time like when you were waiting? Like, did you feel one way or another like he's going to make it or he's not? Like, did you have any sense of that?
I did, and I didn't feel like he was going to make it. And I was begging the Lord, "God, please don't take my husband." I remember laying over in the chair, "Please don't take my husband. Please don't take my husband." And I'm not saying he took him, but I'm saying he allowed him to die, because if he didn't want him to die, he wouldn't have died.
Right.
So he's just using it now. But I do not for one second believe he caused it.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. Wow. So it's, I mean, yours is a shocking death. You didn't, he went in for this and then
we were supposed to be home by dinner.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you're completely devastated, shocked. Were your kids there? Was anybody with you? How was that?
Yeah, I had 5 pastors in the room.
Oh, wow.
All from 4 from my church. One was his brother, who's a pastor. And this is where the negative experience with a different chaplain came in. While we were waiting to hear that whether Dave was going to make it or not, a chaplain came in, sat down next to me for a little bit, asked me if there was anything I needed, and 5-10 minutes later, he's like, "You look like you have a lot of good support, so I'm just going to go ahead and go." And I'm like, I don't think that's how that's supposed to work.
Right.
But I didn't have the bandwidth to say anything.
Right.
But it's just crazy. So I just said, I'm going to take lessons from both experiences and use them.
Right.
I'm going to use my grief to redeem it. That's probably a good way to put it. I'm going to redeem the grief and go further with it.
And so were your kids there with you?
So my daughter was there. She teaches in a town that's not super far from us, maybe 45 minutes from our house. And then from the hospital, it's probably more like a little over an hour. And so she came. So she got to see my husband before he died. She saw him the same time I did when he came out of the cath lab and we're going into the elevator. We got to see him for about 0.5 seconds, just enough to give him a kiss. And they took him. My son, unfortunately, was not there. He had flown out that morning to Colorado Springs, Denver, one of them. He was in Colorado for a work retreat. And I told him, I said, I'll just text you if everything's good, and I'll call you if something happens. And then I had to call him. And I said, I need you to come home. Wow. This was before he died. And then I called him and said, after I said, I need you to come home. Daddy didn't make it. And so he was gone less than 24 hours. He flew out 6:30 or so that morning and flew back in 12:30 the next morning. Wow. So it was horrible.
Yeah, that's probably one of the hardest phone calls you've ever had to make. Imagine.
Probably at first I didn't. I'm like, who do I call? Who do I call? Right. I had no idea who to call. Thankfully, I had a friend that would not let me go by myself, and she came with me, and She sat there with me and helped me make decisions on who to call.
Oh,
And my
good.
husband, God bless his soul, had made a list of people he wanted me to call if something happened.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yes.
That's
And I took a
wow.
picture of the list and had it on my phone, and I ended up having to pull it up and say, who does he want me to call?
Wow.
So his family, of course, the children, his family, and the pastors, and a couple of specific friends that he wanted to hear from me or from someone in the family, as opposed to seeing it the next day on Facebook or whatever.
Right. Right. So you go through this shocking time, and like, what is that? What are those first few days like for you?
Couldn't eat,
Mm-hmm.
couldn't think. So he died on a Tuesday. We went on that Saturday to the funeral home to plan the service, knowing that we weren't going to use any of the funeral home's facilities. We were just going to use their services. Went there. I couldn't even think.
Mm-hmm.
Two of my sisters-in-law went with me to help me make decisions.
Right.
And the funeral director was amazing. Didn't realize that he was a friend of my husband. I
Oh,
knew he
wow.
knew my husband
Uh-huh.
because we'd used the same funeral home for my mom's funeral 8 months before.
Mm.
So I lost my mom in December, and then I lost my husband 8 months later.
Oh,
But he was very, very helpful. Helped me fill out the paperwork for the death certificates. Helped me fill out the paperwork for the cremation because that's what Dave wanted. All that stuff.
right.
And so I didn't have to do a lot of worrying about that. And once I got to the church, I didn't have to do anything because we did everything at our church. All the services were at our church.
Okay. And you
Yeah, it
had
was
people
good.
that just poured into
Oh
planning
yes.
that and all that stuff.
The pastor called me and said, whatever you need, let me
Right.
know. Don't hesitate. Let
Mm-hmm.
me know.
Right.
And they held true to their word.
Right.
They
And
did.
I'm imagining with such a quick death, because mine was the opposite, like took forever, like, long sickness. I'm imagining there's a lot of like questioning. Like, I mean, we question no matter how someone dies, but like, God, why? Like,
Oh yeah, still do.
crying. Yeah, like
Hmm.
all of
Still
those
do.
things. Because we're talking for you, it's not even that long ago. This was in 23,
August
right?
2023. So it's been a little over a year.
Right. Wow.
Yep.
Yes. So you're still kind of what we
Not
call
even 13 months
baby
yet.
widow. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So extremely hard. Then what, for a lot of people, this is what it was for me, like after the service, but I had to wait a couple months for the service because of COVID. But like, it doesn't matter when the service is. Like after that's done, I feel like it's pretty hard because you're like, in the meantime, you're planning, you have this to look forward to, all this stuff, and all these people surrounding you, and they're gone. And then
Hmm.
like for me, that was a really hard time.
Hmm.
And I had my kids at home, and I hear from widows that don't have their kids at home, it can be even more lonely and even more hard. Like, what was that like for you?
Well, I had that same friend that came with me that
Mm.
day was my ride or die.
Oh,
She was my body in the room.
that's
I would call her
awesome.
and say, I just need a body in the room. I don't need to talk. I just want somebody in the house.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so she would come over and she said she just needed a blanket and a phone charger and a chair to sit in. That's all she needed. And that's all she would have. One morning she had been there because she worked nights. She would
Mm.
come over in the mornings and sit with me for a little bit. And I'm like, can you just stay long enough for me to take a shower? Because I don't want to be in the house by myself. And
Mhm.
at that point, my mother-in-law was living with me, but she lived
Mhm.
upstairs. And I was just like, she's precious. It's not the same.
Right.
I just needed somebody there that was there for me.
Right. Who
And
wasn't also
so,
going through their own grief.
exactly, because my
Mhm.
husband did a lot for my mother-in-law,
Mm.
a lot.
Mhm.
And so she basically lost her person too.
Right.
She does have 3 other children though.
Mhm.
So she's not completely alone, and she's a widow as well, but she's been a widow for
Mm.
since 96, I think.
Oh, wow.
So almost 30 years, 28 years.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just crazy.
Mhm.
So she would be here, and then there for the first couple months, I didn't really have a lot of problem being alone.
Mhm.
If I wanted to be alone, I could be, but if I needed something, I just have to pick up phone and say, I can't be alone. I need something because I didn't work for the first 2 months after
Right.
Dave died. I had to get licensed as an insurance agent. And that's a whole long story. But it was a good thing, and did that in the 2 months that I was off, and took care of all the paperwork, all the just all the life insurances, changing the wills,
Yes,
changing the
there's
house,
so
going to
much.
the bank, taking care of the life insurance, just so much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so not funny story, but interesting story about the life
Mm-hmm.
insurance. On the 20th, before he had his first cath, so the week before that first cath, he sat me down. He said, I know this sounds weird, but I just want to sit you down. I want to sit down with you in the office and look over the folder. Everybody needs a folder. Had the life insurance, had a list of things that he wanted me to do
It's
if
amazing.
he died. I did
Wow.
some of them and some of them I didn't do.
Right.
And then there was a letter that he had
Mm.
written me, the
Wow.
if I die letter.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I didn't read that. He wouldn't let me read that while he was still
Right.
alive, but I did go back and read it, of course, after he died.
Mm.
And but I knew exactly what he wanted. I had phone numbers, I had passwords, I had everything
That's
I needed.
a gift because most
That was a
people don't.
huge gift. He made
Mm-hmm.
sure I was taken care of. He made
That's
sure,
what a
and
good
I would
man.
guarantee
That's awesome.
you that if he knew I needed to be licensed for the reason that I needed to be licensed, I would have had it 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He would have helped me through it, and
Mm-hmm.
he would not have left that for me alone. He was just that kind of guy. He would not have done
Wow.
that.
Wow. That's amazing to have a
It
folder with all
is.
of that,
It
you
is.
know. And that's, I think about, I could be widowed again. I'm married again. And just, I don't like to talk about those things, but Joel and I have talked a little bit and I'm like, we need to have things in order. Like
Mhm.
I know what can happen. And I've seen every kind of story with all the widows I've talked to.
Mhm.
Those like yourself who have it taken care of, which is rare.
Mhm.
And then those that have nothing. And then the paperwork is so much harder when your name's not on the house or not on the car or not on the, we knew we had a
Mhm.
long time with Luke. And so we made sure a lot of those things. But I didn't have like all those details. In fact, one of my biggest regrets is one day he told me the password to his phone. I was like, that's easy. I didn't write it down.
Uh-oh.
And then when he died, I ended up getting locked out of his phone because I tried so many passwords. I even have a list of all the passwords I tried and it
Mhm.
locked me out, and so we didn't have anything written down, but I wish we would have because,
Well, he had told me where the passwords were, and I could not find them until I had changed them all. I found them
yeah,
after that. They were
like
because we
there
have a
they
little
are.
bill box. Well, he calls
Uh-huh.
it the bill box. It's just a little tin that we keep the checkbook and the bills and stuff like that in. And when it's time to pay him, he would pay him. It was in the bottom of that box, and I had forgotten. I knew there was a
Okay.
list, but I could not remember where it was. And
Mm-hmm.
he, after I'd already changed all the passwords that I needed, um, I found it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But I knew what he wanted, and like I said, I did some of the things, and some of the things I didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
I did what was best, what I felt was best for me,
Right.
and that that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
That was hard. I still have some mindsets. It's like Dave wouldn't do that. Dave's
Mm-hmm.
not here,
Right.
so I'm going to do what's best for me,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
get to answer for it now.
Right. Exactly. Like some of that stuff you just have to, when I used to think a lot, oh, what would Luke think about this? What, like I just have
Hmm.
to let it go. And then if it's something like, oh, he wouldn't like this, I'd be like, you know what? In his perfect state now in heaven, he'd be good with it. So it doesn't
Hmm.
matter,
Yep.
and trying to figure out like really what is best now, not what they
Hmm.
thought was best at the time. They were, talked about whatever.
Hmm.
So that's amazing. So you had your friend there to help you a lot. What other things helped you through your grief?
Oh my gosh, the word, the word,
Mm,
the word, and music.
yes.
There was a couple of albums that I had on repeat. A
Yes.
specific album called Narrow Way by Stephanie
Narrow
Gretzinger.
way.
And it was amazing. There's one song in that album called Shadow of Shaddai.
I want to look that up.
And that's where I hid
Mm,
in that shadow. I live in that shadow now, it feels like. And I can tell when I step outside it too.
mm,
You can feel that eat you can feel that when you step outside that shadow.
mm-hmm.
And there were two specific Bible verses that I actually wrote down. Psalm 91:1, when you abide under the shadow of Shaddai, because of the
Oh,
song, you are
uh-huh.
hidden in the strength of God Most High.
Oh, I love
And
that.
in Psalm 46:5, God is within her. She will not
Mm,
be toppled. God
love
will
that.
help her when the morning dawns.
So
And he
good.
did, because Dave died at night.
Mm,
And then when I woke up the next morning, I was like, what just happened?
yeah, that's the worst.
It took a while to I still, I can't, still have a hard time wrapping my brain around it.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's not coming back,
Right.
but I still have a hard time wrapping my brain around the fact that he's actually not coming back.
Right. I'm 4 years out and I'm married to someone else, and I still have like there's moments I'll like just be like, whoa, Luke died. Like it's a strange
Mhm.
feeling, even though you know it and your brain knows it. You saw that, like it's just such a strange thing for our brain to comprehend.
I had a
And
super rough day at work one day, and just in general,
yeah.
and I just sobbed all the way home because I
Mm,
couldn't call Dave
right.
and tell him.
Mm-hmm.
And so my friend came over.
Oh, I
We
love
didn't do
that.
it. We just sat. I just sat. I was supposed to do homework that night, and I'm like, no, I can't do it
Mm-hmm.
because I'm in school now. So I'm
Oh,
like, I
okay.
can't do it. I can't do the homework. It'll have to wait. And then the Lord made up for it. I was able to get everything done. That was a Tuesday night, and I had the whole next Wednesday to
Mm-hmm.
be able to do my schoolwork,
Yeah, that's
and got it all done.
so when you say the word, I know you're talking about the Bible, just in case people
Hmm.
might not know what
I
that means
am.
exactly. So
Hmm.
do you have a specific way that you do it? Do you just open the Bible? Do you have things you study? Like I think it's great to learn how other people, what works for
I use
them.
YouVersion
Oh,
a
yes.
lot. And
Yeah.
actually, right now, I'm doing the Bible recap
Okay,
with
I've done that
Tara Lee
before.
Cobble.
Yeah,
Tara
she's
Lee Cobble.
awesome. Mm-hmm.
She is. I listen to that every day. I'm doing it with a couple of friends,
Yes,
probably
that
like
makes
4
it.
friends.
I like that
And
too.
I do that every morning.
Mm,
When I don't, it's either because I'm doing something else that the Lord, I know He'd be okay with me not doing it that day, or I'm just exhausted,
mm-hmm.
or something happened that I have to go to work super early.
Right.
But typically, it's the Bible and coffee and praying in the
Mm,
morning.
so important. I've been
Hmm.
reading this book called the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Yes, I've heard of that
So
book.
good. And it was talking about like we need to look to Jesus as an example and how he lived his life and how he would get away and he would
Hmm.
take time and just how important that is, and to really take time to just sit in the quiet and listen to God
Hmm.
and pray and read the Bible. And honestly, sometimes like I don't actually, a lot of times I haven't been stopping to do that. And so I'm like, I really need to do that. Like, I really need to
Hmm.
get back. So I did it this morning and it just felt so good.
Hmm.
And how people are like too busy to do this, too busy, but we're not. I mean, that's the most important relationship in our life. We need to, like,
Hmm.
that should be first.
Hmm.
And so just getting back into that habit of just sitting there, and there is a sweetness that happens. I've talked to so many widows that God really has a heart for the widows and he
Hmm.
really meets you. That first year, especially, I felt closer
Hmm.
to God than ever. Like
Yeah,
in
me
a
too.
in a new way, right? It's like it's
Hmm.
this way, like God's got you, he's your protector, he's all these things. And I felt like I would just sit on his lap and cry.
Yep.
And like he'd be there, and it was a sweetness that I've never known before, and it's such a
Yep.
beautiful thing that
Yep.
God really does. We did an episode about what does God say about widows, and it's like all these verses over 100 times he talks about
Hmm.
widows.
Hmm.
And he has a heart for widows. So what other things did you go through? Any counseling or any grief programs or
I did. Dave was an organ donor. He didn't
okay.
get to donate any major organs because of the trauma of the CPR and all that stuff. So he donated his corneas. So the very next
Mm,
day, 2 local people were able to get his corneas.
that's
And then
amazing.
they did some tissue, some his femurs. I had no idea you could do femurs.
Mm-mm.
So
I
they
didn't know
they
that either.
harvested his femurs, and they harvested some skin from the backs of his legs for skin grafting.
Okay.
And because he was an organ donor, um, Life Share of the Carolinas gave 6 free grief sessions with
Oh,
with a grief
awesome.
counselor. So I did that. I didn't do it at first, but I did it. And now I'm in Grief Share
Okay,
at our
great.
church.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a lot. I probably should have taken it earlier, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was ready.
Right. Yeah, you got to do
And
what's right for you. Mm-hmm.
when I talked to the lady that facilitates it a few weeks ago at church, I said, I'm ready, but I can't come because I knew it started that day, August 4th, but I just couldn't come that day. And she said, go ahead and get signed up and come the next week. So I've been 3 weeks in a row.
Good.
And I knew that I still didn't want to, but
Mhm.
I knew it was time. I could feel that shift, that I
Right.
knew it was time. And
Mhm.
so I did, and I'm getting something out of it every week.
That's awesome. Have you
I would
can
highly recommend that if somebody can do grief share, that it's good. It's
Mhm.
worth it.
Definitely. Have you connected with other widows?
I have. Um,
Mhm.
my sister's mother-in-law was the first one to bring food.
Okay.
She's a widow. She lost her husband in October will be 3 years. He
Mhm.
was in his mid to late 70s though, and he had been sick. So it was a little bit of a different
Mhm.
situation, but grief is grief.
Yep.
So, and then I've got several other people. They come out of the woodwork. You don't
Right?
know
I
they
know.
are
Yep.
until until you lose your husband.
Yes. Exactly.
And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I've had several people at church um, tell me. One lady I spent 2 hours on the phone with one day because her husband and my husband used to sing together at church
Oh,
sometimes.
wow.
They just had her husband had just a beautiful baritone and Dave's was a tenor, just a
Mhm.
beautiful tenor voice, and they would sing together. So we connected a little bit. We see each other, but we haven't connected like on the phone since then. And then I've got another friend who is a widow. She's 2.5 years out, I think,
Mhm.
and we had dinner a couple of weeks ago. So I've been able to connect with several, and
That's
then several
great.
people who are not widows who just wanted to pour into me.
That's
I let
so
people pour
great.
into me. I
Yeah,
let them. If you want to take me to dinner,
that's
absolutely.
great.
We'll make the time.
Right. I love that.
Hmm.
So, what do you think has been the most challenging part about being widowed?
All the stuff that he used to do that I now have to do,
For sure.
even down to taking out the garbage,
Right.
taking the garbage to the curb, bringing the groceries in. That's the first time I. It's probably the first time I had a super big breakdown after the funeral and after everything. That was probably at that point the biggest secondary loss was when I was bringing the groceries in one night and it was dark and it was cold and I just did not want to be out. I was scared. I was fearful being out by myself at night. But I didn't have a choice. I had to go to the grocery store. And I got home and I sat in my or stood in my kitchen and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
Of all these groceries, I don't know what to do. My house is a mess. I don't know where to start. And I just cried.
Right.
And I texted my daughter's mother-in-law, who is a close friend of mine, and I said, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. And she said, one thing at a time.
Yep. That's good advice.
One thing at a time. One bag of groceries at a time. Sweep the floor, do whatever, one thing at a time. And so
Mhm.
I finished my crying and I did one thing at a time. I didn't get it all done. I never
Right.
do.
Right.
It's okay. It's a work in progress and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's so true that it can be so overwhelming when you're a new widow that you just have to look at today. Like,
And I didn't even have children at home.
mhm.
I didn't. And I'm like, I can't imagine if I'd had small children at home. I would, if I had to be thankful for anything, I was thankful for the timing that both of my
Yeah.
children had been out of the house for 10 years probably.
Mhm.
That, and so I didn't have to deal with small children or even teenagers. I
Mhm.
can't imagine. Cannot
Yes.
imagine. His mom lived with me, but she's since moved out and in with her oldest son because Dave was the
Mhm.
second born. And it
Okay.
just made sense for us to, because where we lived, she added onto our house, and now we moved here, and our house is set up so that we could do two separate families
Mhm.
and still be able to make it work. And we
Right.
did for a long time. She's just moved out now, though. So
Wow. So
that's,
what was the 1 year anniversary of his death like for you? Because you just had that.
I did. I woke up super early just because my body wouldn't let me sleep.
Right.
I got in my chair. I did my praying, which really consists of sending emails to several people. Um, and I slept.
Oh, good.
I slept for a good long time. Then I got up and I got up, dusted myself off, took a shower, did my hair, went and got a mani pedi,
Good for
had some ice
you.
cream for lunch. I'm
Good. I
like, you know
love
what? I want
it.
ice cream.
I
I want
love it.
ice cream. So I went and got a mani pedi because I knew that's what he would have wanted.
Yeah.
He would have loved that. He loved petties. He loved getting
Really?
pedicures.
That's so cute.
He loved it. And he didn't do the paint toenails or anything, but he loved just having them work his feet. And I could always tell when he had gotten one because he would text me at work and say, "You have a 5:30 appointment at the mall for a pedi," meaning I already got one.
Right? I
Yeah.
love that.
But he was always very good about that. Very, 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 just very generous and caring. I felt cherished,
I love that.
which is even different than feeling loved.
Right. It is.
Because I looked up the word cherished. Cherish means to lovingly care for.
Mm.
And I felt lovingly cared for every night when he would give me a hug and a kiss goodnight. I miss that. I miss that physical touch.
Yes.
I do. I miss that.
Mm.
Somebody to scratch my back.
Right.
Somebody to give me a hug. And just that stuff.
Yeah.
I miss that.
That is hard.
It is hard.
You're a fairly new widow, but what advice would you give to like a really brand new widow, like a baby widow?
Let your people help you.
That's good.
Let them help you. Don't try to do it all yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Some days don't do anything. If your kids get fed and they're alive at the end of the day, even if they had mac and cheese for 3 meals in a day.
Yep.
Unless they're allergic.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They're not going to die if you feed them mac and cheese 3 times in a day or corn dogs.
Right.
Or whatever. They're not going to die.
Mm-hmm.
If
did
somebody
a lot of cereal.
Exactly. If somebody says, "I want to come do your laundry," yes, the laundry detergent's in the cabinet.
Mm-hmm. That's
I have a friend doing my laundry right now.
That's so
actually.
great. I love that.
That friend that was with me that day, we've made an arrangement. I'm gonna pay her a little bit, but she has come over a couple times and she'll do my laundry, she'll clean my bathroom, she'll clean my kitchen, she'll vacuum my floors while I'm doing schoolwork, all that. And right now she's sitting with my granddaughter because my granddaughter was sick today and my grandson's sick too, actually. She's sitting with them so I can do this.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, she's really good. She's old enough, young enough rather, to be my daughter. But I would venture to guess she's probably my best friend.
I love that. What's her name?
Her name's Megan.
Megan. Shout out to Megan. I'm sure you're listening.
Well, she will be.
Yes,
She
we
will
really
be.
appreciate friends like you. We all need
And
one.
I've got another friend. Her name's Lauren. All I have to do is text her and say, "Do you have 8 minutes?" And "Yep, I sure do." Meaning that I heard a guy on probably Instagram or something say it usually takes a person who is going through a tough time about 8 minutes to talk themselves out of it. If they can talk with someone to process it and to start at least on the direction of feeling better about things. And so I'll text her and say, "Do you have 8 minutes?" And she will.
Love that.
And she'll be like, "Yeah."
I love how you're not afraid to I call it in my book that I'm writing, call on your tribe, to reach out to your people.
No, absolutely not.
And to take the help and all of that stuff. Actually, podcast that came out when we're listening to this will be last week, but I interviewed him yesterday. He was saying something about when you don't let people help you, it's like denying them. Like it also,
absolutely,
they want to help. Like they want to be there and feel like they're doing something. And so let people, he had the same kind of advice, like let people help you. I think that's huge.
I heard somebody put it, let them wash your feet.
That's good.
Let them wash your feet.
Yeah.
Because Jesus did that in the Bible. Let them wash your feet.
Right.
How do you know that it's not Jesus using them to wash your feet, to minister to you? He's just doing it through them. Right. And when you don't let them, you are denying them. Sounds a little cliche to say you're denying them of a blessing, but maybe you're denying them the chance to obey. Because God said, call her, ask her if you can do her laundry. So story about obeying. The day Dave died, my son-in-law's brother called my son-in-law and said, "I feel like we are supposed to come and pray for Dave." And I said, "Absolutely. You come, you pray. I'm not going to be in there, but you come and you pray." And obviously, because I'm on this podcast, he didn't come back. But I feel like at that point, it was not so much about how God was going to answer the prayer, but that they had trusted and they had obeyed and they had exercised their faith in coming to pray. even if God didn't answer it like they thought he would,
Yeah.
or like they were expecting him to.
Yeah, that's really true.
Hmm.
So it's been about a year, a little over a year. You've been through all the holidays. Did you have
Yes.
one that was the hardest for you? Or all equally hard, or
They were all pretty hard, but
yeah.
Christmas was later in the day. Christmas was harder.
Yeah.
Because we would have gone over to my daughter's house, which I did. She
Mhm.
asked me, she said, "Do you want us to come to you?" I said, "No, I want to come to
Mhm.
you." Two reasons. Number one, you have 3 kids. That's 5
Yeah.
people you got to move.
Right.
7 people's worth of presents.
Yeah.
I'll just come to you.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to clean up the mess.
Exactly.
So I went to them, and my son went to them. And then my son-in-law's family was very gracious and invited us over to his parents' house for
Mm,
Christmas dinner. And
nice.
his mom's name is Gwen. She always goes all out for Christmas dinners, Thanksgiving dinners. If she hosts the dinner, and we had prime rib that day.
Mm,
That's how
wow.
good it was. And
Yeah.
she always makes everything homemade. It's just so good. She's been a super good source of encouragement as well. And sometimes it's been a calling me out in a good way, calling out
Mhm.
the gold, calling out the gold,
Mm,
digging around in the dirt of the grief and pulling out that gold that she
mm.
knew was there.
That's so great.
Yep,
That's wow. I love all the support that you have.
I do.
Um,
I do. My
how
work actually shut down the office at 1 o'clock that day so that anybody who wanted to could come to the receiving of friends or to the funeral.
wow, that's
Yep,
amazing.
they did. And that's a corporate office.
Yeah,
So it's pretty rare that they even get by with, I don't think they even ask permission. I think you just said, we're just going to do it.
that's awesome. I love
And
that.
it was very sweet. And a lot of them came.
Wow. So what brings you joy now? Like what have you discovered any new hobbies? Like what do you do when you're just like, I feel joy right now? Like what brings you that?
Church,
Okay.
most of the time, church. Sometimes church is a little grievy just because the
Mm.
building that we're in now, my husband was never able to enjoy. We moved into a new
Oh.
building in April and he never got to enjoy it, but we did
Mhm.
contribute and help pay for the building of it or the remodeling of it. So that's sometimes a little sad, but usually that, and a lot of times it's my grandbabies.
Yeah, I'm
My
sure.
grandbabies. They are just, Joel's just silly, Raynan's silly, he's funny, and Selah is just a little diva. She's 3 and thinks she's 23,
Mhm.
but
That's cute.
she's just they're both just funny, and I enjoy
Mhm.
being around my children. And then I've
Mhm.
got certain friends that I'm like, yeah, we can go out to dinner. I'll be good with that.
Yeah,
And
that's
then, and I'm
good.
in school too, so that
Yeah.
is, I'm not sure right now. I would say it brings me joy,
Right.
but it does bring me a sense of accomplishment when I do well on an assignment because I'm a little bit of a competitive person.
Mm.
I love doing well on assignments. I get frustrated when I don't get a perfect grade. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'm just like, okay, I'm done. I tried 4 times to fix it. I can't fix it. I'm just going to take the grade.
Right. And what are you going to school for?
I'm actually going for my bachelor's in psychology with a
Awesome.
focus on Christian counseling. And
Okay.
then I'll get a master's in divinity with the focus on chaplaincy because I want to be the chaplain that I needed the day my husband died.
Wow. That's
And
awesome.
that's why I said I'm taking lessons from both the one chaplain that did such a stellar
Mhm.
job and the other guy that could have done better.
Mhm. That's
So,
amazing. I love
and
how you're letting God make beauty from the ashes.
I was riding home from work one day in my little car that my husband would have never bought, but I did. Um, I was listening to another podcast and I heard a guy, his name is J.S. Park, wrote a book called As Long as You Need Permission to Grieve.
Sounds
Super good
good.
book. And he's a
Mhm.
hospital chaplain. And
Mm.
I literally was stopped at a light and I literally went, huh, I never thought about that. And then I did a little bit of research and realized that you have to have a master's for that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't think so. And the Lord said, what, you think I can't do that? You think I can't help you do that? So I checked out some schools and landed at Liberty University.
Okay, very
Hmm.
cool. That's
And this
awesome.
is week 2 for me.
Mhm.
Week 2 of what feels like 100. I'm sure it won't be that, but it feels like it.
Right. That's amazing. I love that. I
I'm
had
excited.
a thought similar to that about 3 or 4 months ago, maybe like 3. I was with a brand new widow, like it had been 2 or 3 days since her husband
Oh, that
passed.
is new.
And I hadn't been in that situation since Luke died, but it was a good family, a good friend's family. Anyways, just that feeling of being there to pray over her and, just be kind of like a widow chaplain. I was like,
Yep.
I drove home and I was calling Joel and I was like, I think I want to be a widow chaplain. Like it was so like I loved letting God use me in it was hard being back in a brand new situation, but I felt so good about what I did. And I was like, so it kind of got my wheels spinning a little bit, like, I don't know. So it's just a
I
thought.
actually shout out to your podcast. I had a patient whose sister had just lost her husband, and I gave her the information about your podcast.
Oh, thanks.
I did. I'm like, I will share. I think I sent the screenshot or something. I know I wrote it down, and I've given anybody who asks, "What do you listen to?" Well, this is what I listen to. I mean,
Oh,
I have
thank
you guys aren't
you.
the only one, but you
Right.
guys are the one that I listen to first. If you guys have a new episode, that's the first one that plays
Oh,
because I
I
listen to
love it.
podcasts all night long. I
Mm,
have ringing in my ears, so I have to have something going, and so it's a
yes.
podcast all night long.
Okay. Yeah. I
And
really.
usually the Lord will wake me up when either whoever's talking is saying something that I need to hear.
Oh, wow. So you
He'll
you
wake me up.
literally have them playing all night long, like
Literally have
not.
it playing all night long.
Okay.
I do.
Wow. That's
Because I can't
awesome.
sit in a quiet room
Mm,
because I have my ears are ringing right now.
mm-hmm.
But because we're talking, it's not a distraction. But if I'm laying in a quiet room and I'm trying to
I
go to
have that
sleep, my
too.
brain won't shut off because of that.
Yes, I don't know if you listened to. Well, you said you listened to all the episodes where I talk about the ringing in my ear about. And last December it started, so
Hmm.
I understand that, and I actually have little. They look like hearing aids that I wear sometimes. I have white noise because
Hmm.
of that, and it's something I've prayed for God to heal, but He hasn't. But
It's been a super long time for me because I used to work on an ambulance and that just made it worse. The sirens made
oh,
it
right.
worse.
That's such a loud
Yeah.
noise. Those are,
Hmm.
yes. Well, I do understand that it is something like maddening if you sit and think about it, but I have to just
Oh, it is.
not think about it.
Mm-mm.
So,
I went to the doctor and said, "Is there a cure?" He goes, "Nope,
nope.
just
I know,
behavior
me too.
modification. Don't sit in
Yeah.
a quiet room."
But I'm telling you that it has helped. Treble Health is where I like tons of education about tinnitus, ringing in the ears, all the stuff. And I got the little things and it's helped. Like I don't even wear it every day because it doesn't bother me anymore. But I wore it for like 4 or 5 months. I wore them every day. And I think it just sped up the process of getting
Okay.
used to it. And so anyways, you can check out their videos. Anybody who's listening who has this issue, Treble Health on YouTube, and you'll get a lot of like just
Okay.
great things. And they also have like white noise sounds and lots of great different things you can play. So that's definitely what helped me. But I do understand that feeling of
Yeah.
like, I hate this. This is awful.
Yeah. I'll do the white noise when I'm studying or when I'm sitting
Mm,
here at the computer and studying.
yeah.
And if there's, because I have 2 cats, so who knows what's going to be happening behind me
Right.
when with the cats in the house. So I put the white noise on and put my earbuds in, and then I can't hear. I put noise canceling on, and I can't hear anything. But it
Yes.
doesn't. It hides the either white noise or brown noise. It hides the noise that's going on, and it also hides the tinnitus, the ringing.
Yes.
So that
Well,
makes
I
it
have
better.
another great podcast for you. And their episode just came out. It's called At the Table with the Harities. And that's
Oh,
David and Amy Harity. Their episode just came out.
I just heard them. Didn't
Yeah.
you
And
just
they
that
have
aired yesterday?
yes, and they have their own podcast. It's only on the 2 places right now. It's on YouTube and Spotify. They're hoping to
Okay.
get it other places, but that one's really great. And one of the episodes they interviewed a widow and a widower that were married, and then they just did one that released with their daughter Emily, and so it's beautiful hearing it from a teenager's point. Or I think she was like 18 when her mom died. So that's a great one for all of you listening.
How do you spell their name?
Okay,
Their last name?
I think I've got it memorized because I've had to do it so many times. HARAUGHTY.
Okay, got it.
Harry.
Yeah.
And I'll put a link below, and I put it in the last one too.
Oh,
Or
good.
I
Good,
guess
good,
when
good.
you hear this, people, it'll be 2 weeks ago that they were on the podcast. But that's another great one where they just felt like God like really put on their heart. They're on episode 4 to just start interviewing
Okay.
people, and it's really, really interesting. Especially if you
Good.
just heard their podcast, then you'll know a little of their background and stuff.
Yeah.
So, anyways, everybody, that's another great podcast to listen to. So, anyways, is there anything else like you want to say to the listeners?
I would like to say something else. So for people, I don't know how many people listen to this who are not widows or widowers,
Yeah,
but
I think there's some.
things that, let me see if I can find my notes. What not to say, what not
Yes,
to
we got
do.
a whole episode about this. Yes.
Ask me, don't ask them what they need.
Yeah. What do you need?
Don't ask a widow what she doesn't know. We don't know.
No.
Just pick something and do it.
So good.
If
So
you want to
good.
bring a meal, ask them if they have food allergies. Ask them what their favorite restaurant is. If you can't bring a meal, gift card, DoorDash. I didn't cook for 2 months
Right? Yeah.
because of gift cards, DoorDash. Somebody gave me a check for $100 and said, take the family out to dinner. I'm like, well, that's 8 of us. Where are we going to go for $100?
Right.
So I didn't do anything with it for a while. A couple days later, I got a gift card for Longhorn restaurant, Longhorn Steakhouse. That was my husband's favorite restaurant.
Oh.
So that's where we went. The $100 and the $50 gift card, that's where we went. So shout out to Jeanette Sherman for giving that to me because she was listening and probably didn't even know it. That she was fulfilling a desire that I didn't even know I had.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. There are so many people that I could thank and that I could be and name, but I'd miss somebody.
Right.
I would miss somebody.
That's so awesome.
But our church has been super supportive. When I asked my pastor if I could do a little memorial at the church building, not inside, but outside the church building on that day. And he said, absolutely. What do you need? Let me know. And then I texted him a few days before and I said, can you come and just say a couple words? And so he did, because there's a cross outside the church with some stones around it and a nice little rustic looking set of seats that look like they're just random wood carved for seats. And I thought, well, that would be a really cool place to just go and say something for Dave. So we did. And he was just super sweet. That was just me, my daughter, my son, and the pastor and his wife. And that was it, because I wanted that just to be us. But I haven't scattered all of his ashes yet. I don't even know if I'm going to. But he did say he wanted to be cremated, and I was going to honor that.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not going to go to his grave. But I did for several months. His ashes still sit on a table in my bedroom. And for several months, I would kiss the box and say, good morning, and kiss it and say, good night. And then when I stopped doing that, I thought, okay, I think I'm done with that.
Right.
Took my ring off on April 22nd, the day after my birthday. I don't know if I was ready, but it was time. And then I will eventually be ready to date again. I'm not beyond dating again or getting married again.
Right.
But I don't know that I'm ready yet.
Right. Yeah, it's such a
And
personal
I'm okay
decision.
with that.
Yeah.
He'll let me. I told a friend, I'm going to let him write my love story.
Yes.
She said, I'd read that book.
Right?
I'll read that book. I said, okay.
Yes. In fact, that was the title of the one with Amy and David, When God Writes Your Love Story.
Oh, I think I did see that.
Uh-huh.
I did hear them, though.
That's, what, Marcus talked about with Tina and I've talked about with Joel, that, letting God wrote our love stories. We could have never, ever done it. And I think it's so beautiful when God writes your love story. So
he wrote mine with Dave.
Right. Exactly. He can do it again.
We knew each other for several months before before we started dating. And then that day, I'm just like, he's kind of cute. And even, when he died, I thought he was so handsome. He had no hair when he died. Like, he was bald.
Mm-hmm.
I'd cut his hair on Saturdays and he would do the dishes. That was our little deal.
Oh, cute.
So he like lost all his hair, but he was just so handsome and he
Right.
made me feel so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
He always made me feel so beautiful. And I heard countless times after he died that it was no secret how much he loved me, and it was no secret how much I loved him.
Right.
And that's what I want for my daughter.
Yes.
I want that for my daughter, and I would love that for my son as well.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
It was very cool.
Well, you have such a beautiful story, and I really appreciate you being brave to come on here and share with everyone and let God use you, because your story can touch people that my story can't. And that's the beauty of what I've decided to do with this season 4, is just anybody who wants to share, so that we get the most stories that can help the most people and touch people all over the world. I think it's like 86 countries now or something crazy like that. Yeah, we are all over the world. And so your story is being heard in many, many places, and you just never know.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we don't even know. We've heard, we get some feedback and hear from people, but I know there's so many stories we don't know of where it goes. And that's the beauty of technology and the time that we live in. I heard it, somebody, I think it's a podcast listener, I can't remember who, sorry, talked about how they heard something about like go into all the world. And, the verse about going to all the world, and how podcasting is really like what we're doing is going into all the world. And I was like, that is so beautiful. We no longer have to physically go to every single place, but because of technology, we can spread our message in all of the world. So shout out to everybody in all the countries listening. I would love it. This would be fun. If you are like from another country than like US or Canada, because I know you guys are listening, if you just send me a little email, or if you're on our Widow Too Soon community, most of those are US, I'd love for you to just say, hey, I'm from this country, from this country, or email me, michelle@widowgoals.org. I'd love to just kind of see where people, I can see it on the statistics, but I like to hear from you. Like, where are you? And, how, that's just fascinating to me. So anyways, I would love to pray us out. So I'm going to go ahead and
that'd
pray
be great.
for you.
Thank you.
Yes. God, I just thank you so much for Janice. Thank you for how you are turning her really hard story into something beautiful. Thank you for the desire that you've given her to be a chaplain and to help all the people. It's just amazing, like through her story, how many people she's going to be able to help. So I just pray that you give her the strength she needs to do all the schooling, and you just continue to put everything in place. And we just thank you for being here. And getting her here on this episode. And we pray for all the listeners today, God, that you will cover them with the peace that passes all understanding, and that today they will see beauty among the ashes, that you will give them the manna they need for today and the strength to make it through, and to give them comfort in a new way. And we just thank you for all you've done. Amen.
Amen.
Well, I'm going to say it. If you like this podcast, give it a little bing, 5 stars. It's kind of like my tagline. I have to, 3.5 years into this. I was like, maybe for season 4, I'll change it, but I've still been saying it.
No, don't change it.
Yeah. Like it's on on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen. I think we're literally on I've made sure we're on like every podcast platform. And, if you have a minute, it really helps us if you can like write a little review so people will know why they want to be here. I think we have 4.9 out of 5 stars with 48 ratings. And the bad one was because she said we were too Christian. So like a 1-star rating. I'm like, you can give us one for that, because we are Christian. So that she didn't know, and she thought the episode was preachy, and she thought she thought she was tricked into listening to it. So, but we are under the category of Christianity. So anyways,
well, I think that's a dead giveaway then.
Right. I'm like, if we have to get a bad review, that's a great thing to get a bad review about, because,
True.
We're proud of the fact that we're Christians. So anyways, and then I always say this every week, if you haven't joined our Widow Too Soon community, it grows every single day. I have requests for it. Please join that. A link is in the show notes. That is a place, the page has a lot of people, but you can't post on it. So about 6 months ago, we switched over to group, and I love it because people are posting, today's my anniversary, today's this, and then I'm watching the community come together, and I haven't even said anything, and other people have said things and are helping each other. And that's one of the best ways to heal yourself, is to help other people. So
that's how I knew to check my email, that you had emailed me, because I hadn't checked it yet.
Oh yeah,
I saw you
from
post
the
on
page.
something.
Yes, I did. Yeah. And so it's just a great place to come find other people who get it. There's just something about meeting someone else who's been widowed that you're like, we get each other. It's like a secret club we never wanted to join. Not so secret, but it's just like this like sisterhood, brotherhood, like you just get it. I feel like that every time I meet somebody widowed. So please join that if you haven't. And I got to put another plug in for this. I have 6 or 7 guests lined up right now, including the ones I just did, but I want like so many more. So if you have it on your heart at all right now while you're hearing this, to be a guest, to share your story, there's a link in the show notes. Please fill it out. It's just a few questions so I can kind of get to know you, and then I'll send you a calendar to schedule your podcast. And it's not scary. Was it scary, Janice?
No.
I mean, maybe a little. We may be a little nervous in the beginning, but then we just start talking. Yeah, and then we just have a conversation, and it's recorded. I feel like it's way easier than like doing something live, because you're like, people are watching at that second. Like right now, it is literally you and I talking, and it will go out to lots of people, but it's just us. So if you've ever thought about being a guest, please let me know. This season is going to be mostly guests. I am going to, when God puts something on my heart, or maybe just a catch-up episode about what's been going on in my life, I am going to do some on my own, but the majority will be guests. So in order to keep this going, I need more guests. So, or if you know somebody, please, send them this way, send them the link to be a guest. We'd love to have them as well. So anyways, thanks for joining us, Janice. We appreciate you so much. And everybody have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Widowed Too Soon with Michelle Bader Ebersole. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, rate and review. And we'd also love for you to join our Widowed Too Soon community on Facebook. See you next time.